Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. Do you have that post-election hangover that I do? Or just a regular hangover? Or a little bit of both? Hope you're enjoying the conference. Appreciate you joining us today for a topic around self-service data preparation. My name is Dan Potter. I'm with DataWatch. Joining me today is Michael Duke, the Managing Director of KPMG. Michael's going to do the heavy lifting this morning. What I'd like to do is just frame a little bit about the role of data preparation. You heard it yesterday in the keynote. You heard about Tableau's plan and vision around self-service data preparation and the need to have a piece of infrastructure that allows you to unlock a wide variety of data and deliver it to Tableau and to other users. And so I'm going to talk a little bit our perspective on data preparation, why it's important. Michael's going to talk about how KPMG uses DataWatch data preparation technologies to unlock some very complex data. We're going to show you a demo. Then I'm going to end it and talk a little bit about where we see data preparation and a platform for delivering data throughout the organization and how this fits with some of the other pieces of infrastructure that you have. This is your session. Please ask questions along the way. We'll have time for Q&A at the end, but again, stop at any point and just don't heckle. Is that fair? All right, you can heckle. DataWatch is a vendor that's been doing data preparation. We like to say we invented data preparation, and it's a little bit true in that we've been doing this for over 20 years. We started out by unlocking what at the time were some of the biggest challenges, mainframe computing, print spools, EDI streams, difficult data, but business critical information, and delivering that at the time to groundbreaking BI tools called Excel. This world has evolved quickly, but the need to be able to get at the other 88% of information. The sad fact is that only 12% of enterprise information is used for decision making. And the reason why is because everything below the surface, what's often called dark data, it doesn't come in neatly formatted ways to bring directly into powerful tools like Tableau. And this is really what we're focused on at DataWatch. We can get at the 12%, but it's that other 88% that will help you make better decisions. When you unlock this data, you need to be able to prepare it. You need to be able to access the right data, make the manipulations. You need to clean the data. You need to combine and blend this data. You need to deliver it, again, to tools like Tableau, other BI tools. But data preparation goes much more beyond that. If you have a vision for unlocking this data, unlocking all the data that you need, it's not just for analytic use cases. Done right, it's used for operational use cases. You're going to hear a great operational use case today around healthcare. You may be delivering this data to other systems. Again, it's not just unlocking the data and delivering it to Tableau and TDE, which we do, but having a bolder vision to say, okay, how do I better leverage this information across the organization, different users, different use cases. That's where you really see the value of self-service data preparation. So why? How many of you here spend more than an hour a day working with data? Okay, so I don't have to lecture you about the pain in being able to access and clean up data and make it ready for Tableau. The amount of time that you spend, it's enormous, it's significant. They estimate that 80% of your time is preparing data. Most of our customers, it's even more than that. And they estimate the cost on average is $22,000 of your time, which is really low. The actual cost is much higher. Not just the time that you're spending doing this, but the time that your organization is wasting to uncover insights that can help move the business forward, right? If it takes you the majority of your week unlocking data and preparing data, think about how much better your organization could run if you could remove that time entirely and find those new insights to move the business forward. So this is really what data preparation is about. Michael's going to talk about how this works in the use case around healthcare. We'll bring it back to a Q&A. I'll talk a little bit about the future of data preparation as we see it. But again, please ask questions along the way. I'd like to introduce to you Michael Duke, Managing Director at KPMG, longtime DataWatch user. Anybody here a DataWatch user? I meant to ask. Yay, all right, good. Michael's been a longtime user, has some great perspective on data preparation. I'd like to turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Dan. So I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I tend to talk too fast, so if you need me to slow down, just say, hey, Duke, slow down. The other one is I'm going to speak for KPMG, a global, I don't even know how many people we have employed, right? So I'm really only talking about the healthcare practice, but I want you to know I'm not giving you the scoop on everything KPMG does. How many people are here are in healthcare? So we got a few, good. It's not really a healthcare presentation, it's a data prep and analysis kind of presentation, but I'm gonna use a lot of context knowledge around healthcare because that's what I do. So a couple things first, I like walking around, so I'm like a caged animal right now, but some things from the KPMG perspective, at least within our healthcare practice, on what do we mean with data analysis, because there's a lot of stuff out there. So Kyle's one of our associates, and when Kyle came in brand new, these are kind of the things we train our guys on, because this is how we want them to think about it. So this is not, it's not a silver bullet. You don't have to do it this way. This is our perspective and what it means to us. First and foremost, we talk a lot about granularity within our projects and the scope of what we do. For those of you that are in healthcare, there's a tremendous amount of transactional data available. How you package that up, how you scoop it up, and how you make use of it. I got to tell you, for those of you not in healthcare, I don't know what industry you're in, but you're way ahead where we are. Okay, so the analytic capabilities within healthcare are really poor. And so trying to understand that granularity and how do I capture that and do something with it is very important to us. The second thing is frequency, particularly the work we do, which is revenue cycle. So I'm not talking about taking care of anybody particularly, but the data that we use, I don't need it real time. If I can get it near time, that's fantastic. Really, if I can get it at the end of the day, I can survive. And so we try to understand what's the various frequencies we can get data at that granular level. And then a phrase we use, or I use particularly, as we go through some of this, a lot of these are Dukeisms too. So source rationalization. In healthcare, over the last 5 years at least, there's been a strong push for single source systems. And what that means is we used to I'd have a lab system, and then I'd have a pharmacy system, and I'd have a main finance system, and they'd all be different vendors, and trying to buckle those together, that was the best of breed model. Systems like Epic, Cerner, some others have really pushed the market towards single source. There's a fallacy in that though. A lot of our clients now consider that to be the only place they can get operational data, and there's still some very useful data pieces out there. And so it's really, one of the things we do when we walk in on our engagements is the first thing we look at is a matrix of systems, because we know what data we want, and we know typically where we can get it, the type of system. And so we just need to say, all right, is this an SSI billing system versus some other billing system, and be able to pull that out. And so doing some source rationalization and what transaction, granular data we want from that is a pretty important part of what we do and what we consider part of data analysis. And then finally, the whole Tableau thing, right, is how can I make decisions faster? I read a study, whether it's accurate or not, but I like to quote it. It was that the young brain and the adult brain are very similar in the way they make decisions. Is that a picture? They can make decisions much more rapid with a picture than they can with tables. And that's tough for me to convince a lot of my clients, because I'm dealing with CFOs, and they like tables and rows and all this stuff, right? And I'm like, but that's not actionable. You can't do anything with it without a whole lot of manipulation. And so the visualization is a big part of that. So there's a couple other things, again, from our focus that I wanted to cover that we have to kind of beat out of our people a little bit when we bring them in, and then train our clients for some of these. But there's some different perceptions out there that aren't necessarily tied to reality. The first one being that data is just about this massive dump of stuff, and it's really not. Much like I talked about, it has data always has to talk about variety, where it comes from, how fast I get it, so the whole velocity question. And then there is a volume component to it, because again, I mentioned the transactional data. If you think about one of the things we capture, which seems very simple, is every payment and every adjustment to a patient account for its lifetime. Well, if you do that over a 14, 15 hospital system, That's a whole lot of transactions, and that's just a basic piece of data. So understanding what that volume looks like is important, but it's not the most important. Another one is that the more data you have, the better answers you're going to get, the better insights you've got. It's really not true. It's about understanding that right data and the timing of that data, and trying to understand, knowing the question ahead of time is real important for us. We know what we're trying to solve, and so we want the right data to solve that, not just more of it. Another thing too, I think, again, maybe it's just our work, but I see a lot of people spending so much time to get perfect. We use the phrase we're consultants, so it's built into us, I think, but directionally correct is an okay thing. And so as long as I'm not trying to save somebody's life, if I'm directionally correct and can take action for improvement, that's what we're about. Another one is that analytics is about tools. So we'll walk in and we'll start talking about analytics, and they'll say, well, what tool do you use? It's really, I don't care. We love Tableau, we love Monarch, and the DataWatch products. But that's because that's what we like to use. And it doesn't mean that's what analytics is, right? That's just the product. And this is one of the things I think Tableau's working hard on, and I know the guys at DataWatch are also, what's the platform of those tools and the solutions I provide, and how do I produce answers, right? It's less about, although data prep is key, it's less about having a Monarch tool that'll do data prep and consider that part of your analytics. It's really what's the platform I'm going to do to solve problems and that sort of thing. So it's all about making better decisions, at least in the world we live in. And then the fourth one, and we do it a lot, we get this question a lot. We actually have these people, but I'll be at a client, I'll be talking about some advanced analytics, and they'll say, well, is that what you got data scientists in a room somewhere that are going to do all this for us and give us the answers? And ours is no, those people are brilliant and they're very helpful. I use them all the time. But what we try to do in our practice, we're trying to operationalize decision making. And what that means is at the most basic level, can I present people with information that's sitting right there on their desktop that they can make daily decisions on to drive higher performance? And we'll get to some of that in the use case. Another thing we like to talk about is that data is not information. Data is just data. And until you do something with it, it's not worth much. It's actually a cost. But it's not just about having the data, as I've talked about, it's having that right data. And then that middle piece in our little formula at the top underneath the title is what's key, is can we take action on what we see? So there's reporting, there's dashboarding, people need that stuff. But the line of business we're in, it's about, can I take action? And so a great example of this is I'm having a discussion. There's three of us that are practice leaders, national practice leaders for revenue cycle. And the other two guys, great guys, brilliant on revenue cycle, can solve problems all day long. But we're using Tableau to create custom reporting for our engagements so that we can tell our clients, look how great we are, right? And they're going through some of these measurements. I said, well, what's the action we're going to take off of that one? What's that metric going to do for us? They're like, well, no, we just want to report on it. I said, well, that's kind of stupid, guys. If we can't take action on it, we're not going to take action on it, regardless of what the number is. Why the heck do we care? So I know there's people out there that need those things. For us, it's all about, can I take action? And if I can't take action with that metric or that visual or whatever it is, we're probably going to chuck it. So that's a real important thing for us. And really, we're in the business of making money for our clients. We're one of the few consultants, I'd say our ROI is about 10 to 1 for our fees, and that kind of never happens. And so at the end of the day, it's all about finding those actionable insights so that we can drive cash and revenue for our clients. I put this up here because I wanted to talk to you about, I mentioned the 14 hospital system. I do have a client near and dear to me. It's close to my house. And they spent about a year, 14 months or so, building data and analytics for their system. They spent $14 million. I had been talking to them for 2 years about helping them with some of this stuff. They spent $14 million, and they called me up. This is about 6-8 weeks ago. They called me up and said, hey, Duke, we've spent the money. We've turned it over to our internal IT guys. No offense to any internal IT guys here. We turned it over to internal IT guys, and we got nothing. And we're afraid we've wasted the $14 million building this huge repository. All they did is they said, well, we've got to create this big bucket of data, and then we'll know what to do with it. So they weren't thinking of the questions in advance. They weren't thinking about what businesses they wanted to drive with. They weren't looking at service line analysis or value-based care, or population health, whatever it is in healthcare you want to answer. They weren't looking at any of that. They just said, let's build this thing with a bunch of data in it. And so that's why I keep harping on data is just data. And this is a $14 million example of why data is just data, and it'll cost you more if you don't think about what you're trying to solve. And so I'll show you some of the things that we do in our practice, but it's all about solving some problem. And we know what the problem is, and we know what most of the questions are. We just need the data to drive that so that we can make decisions, take action. So I won't give you the client name, but I can tell you a lot about the things they did wrong if you want to hear about those later. A couple last slides before we get into the actual stuff. KPMG does surveys all the time. It helps us get insight into the market. And this one's a little bit older, I'd say in the last year. How are various industries using data, right? And a couple things. These should resonate for those of you that use Tableau. Can I analyze with greater speed? That's what I want to do. And I want to be able to not just analyze it, but can I get more sophisticated insights so that I can make better decisions, right? So those are the two key drivers across industries. And a lot of these, I think we had a total of like 2,000 companies respond to this survey. So it was a good mix of small companies, large companies. But the next one is identifying things that other people would have missed, right? Back to my example of a CFO looking at a table with a bunch of rows and numbers on it. You're going to miss stuff just because the brain can't pick it up. But if I have pictures and I have things that call it out and I'm telling that story visually, I can usually find those things. And I'll show you an example of that when we look at the stuff of how we do that. But that's also a key component of what people are trying to do, which is if you leverage the power of Tableau and some of the data watch stuff or other data prep tools, you can get there. And then can I save money or really improve my bottom line is what we're trying to do. We're not doing analytics for analytics' sake, although sometimes I do on the weekend, but I don't really have a life. Another survey that we did, now this one I think, you actually sent me the link to this one, Dan, I think, was that right? So, me, the guy inside KPMG, didn't even know we did this survey until about a week ago. But some of the things where confidence is lacking is the piece I kind of cut out of that. And I'm not going to read all this to you, but it's the normal stuff. If you've been around this as long as I have, I've been playing around with data since probably 91. I started out as a coder that would write custom extracts out of mainframes. Decided I didn't want to do that very long, and that's when DataWatch came to me and saved my life. But these things, we've been worried about data quality forever, right? I mean, there's a whole cleansing process that anybody that deals with data has to worry about. The effectiveness. Am I getting data that I can do something with? I'm not getting a $14 million data dump, right? The integrity of that data. And then a little bit, this one I didn't quite understand. I had to go back and read it a couple of times, but the resilience of that is, does that, and the way I interpret this, and I'm not sure it's the way it's survey intended, but that's the way I'm going to talk about it, is that data survive over time? So some of the things we do, and I'm going to show you the example of payer rejection analysis, is that supportive? Can I compare year to year? And does that make a difference? And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And that's what I kind of interpret as that resiliency. All right, practical use case, what we do for a living, what my clients pay me to do and my teams to do. The real thing is we go in and we've got one process that's called a health check. It's really just an assessment. We go in and we look at operations. We triangulate, so we'll get a ton of data. We really do. Those of you around it, we get 6 months of very detailed transactional data from our clients, which is a lot. We then go in and interview staff, so we'll watch them do work, and then we'll interview management, and we'll then observe actual processes taking place. And what we're trying to do with that triangulation is sometimes data will flag something, right? And it'll show up and be like, oh, big opportunity. But then we go in and talk to the client and we find out that's really not. An example of that is in the state of North Carolina, where I'm from, we had a period of time where Medicaid ran out of money and they weren't paying the hospitals. And so they said, we'll catch you up in 6 months. Well, on their accounts receivables, we see this huge bubble. We go into a client, we see a big bubble. Oh, Medicaid. What are you doing there? We need to get teams in to work this down. And they said, well, we can work it all you want, but the state's not going to pay us until July. So that was one where if we'd just looked at the data, not having any content knowledge around that, we would have said, well, there's $20 million there, and it really isn't. All right, it's just delayed. So that's the way we go about our work. The whole purpose of that for us is to drive net revenue, accelerate cash, and take costs out where we can. So for you guys not in, now I'm from New York. For those of you that are not in healthcare, particularly on the provider side, so the docs and the hospitals, for every dollar you charge, you don't get paid $1. Okay, there's some discounting in there, and it's payer specific. It could be payer plan specific within a payer. So it could be, you could have 5 Aetna plans that you take, but different discounting. You have self-pay discounts. You have all kinds of stuff. And so the net revenue number is very important for us. There's a term we use called gross to net ratio. So I'm going to charge $1. I'm only going to get 30 cents, but I want to make sure I get that 30 cents because if I don't, I'm in trouble. And trying to figure all that out is a pretty complex little nut. But the interesting part is using DataWatch and Tableau, we can get at it pretty darn good. And that whole process I just told you about takes us about 2 weeks. So from the time we get data, in less than 14 days, I can tell you where there's significant financial opportunity that, while we don't do it at KPMG, I have done it in the past, to go at that at risk. And so I would say if I don't collect any money, I'm not going to get paid. And it's a highly reliable analytic model. So getting into what we practically do and some specifics. Because we use the DataWatch tools, I don't care about format. This is one of our data requests here. Not really important. What is important is I go all the time and I get clients say, well, do you need that in Excel or do you need a common and limited? Do you want PDF? And I don't care. What's easier for you? And I can't tell you how much that expedites extraction processes. If I had to wait typically for a hospital to give me a custom extract where I said this needs to be, field 1, characters 1 through 5, whatever, it'd be months. The IT departments are swamped. They're usually way behind anyway with a bunch of other initiatives, and pulling data for a consultant is not a high priority. And so having the ability with the DataWatch tools to say, just give it to me and I'll figure it out, it is a fantastic benefit for us. We do ask for very transactional data, as I mentioned. So some of these things, like I said, we get 6 months of every financial transaction on an account. We usually get 6 months of charges, which is, for some inpatients, is thousands of rows, on a day. So there's a lot of that stuff. We get tremendous amount of their AR data, and we also ask for their 835s. Again, for those of you maybe even in the industry, an 835 file, you'll hear me talk about it a lot because it's my example today. An 835 file is a payer, what we call remittance advice back to the client in a technical format that says how much I'm going to pay on an account, how much I'm not going to pay, why I'm not going to pay it, and those sorts of things. So it becomes almost a Bible for us as we drive through processes and figure out where there's opportunity to drive net revenue. And then we have standard Tableau workbooks. So we prep all the data with Monarch and another tool they have, Automator, and that becomes a pretty automated process for us. So we push all this data through using the DataWatch technologies. We push it into SQL for the assessment pieces, and then we've got Tableau workbooks that, for the most part, we just unbuckle it. We got one saved, and we just push it on the new data source. So all the tables are the same by using DataWatch, all the table names are the same, all the field names are the same. So it doesn't matter what the source calls it, we don't care. We translate all that through DataWatch so that we can just unbuckle on what we call our health check Tableau and workbook, and I just put it on. And as soon as the data's in it, now I know that with this client, I've got all the opportunities identified, at least from a data perspective. It's very rapid for us. 2 quotes I use a lot because I like them. There's beauty in clean, elegant data, and that's really about the right data. That's what speaks to me on that one. And the other one is discovery consists of seeing what everybody has seen and thinking what nobody else has thought. That one's big, I think, because that goes back to that survey, right? So this was, 1893, or whenever, I'm not sure when he said it, but that concept's been around for a long time. It shows up again in the KPMG survey about what do executives need from data and visual analytics for their businesses. So that's why I like that one. It's actually kind of enlightening. So from here, I'm going to go to the demo, and that's one of the reasons I was running behind. I was having some technology issues, so bear with me for a minute while I open those up. Nope, you don't want to care about that, do you? So the first one I wanted to show you, remind me later, this is an 835 file. So for those of you who have never seen one, this one I'm going to walk around because I like to poke. All right. So you can see, is anybody in the government? Sorry about this. This is a format created by our lovely federal government on an efficient way to send data back to hospitals from payers. So everybody's supposed to conform to the layout. Nobody does because there's no fine in it, right? So they don't get penalized. They can kind of do what they want. But there's a tremendous amount of information in here. But as you can see, it's pretty awkward. And these usually come back. You can get, gosh, what do we process? 50,000 files for a client for just a couple months worth. And it wasn't even all their payers. But our ability to use the data watch technologies to peel this out is critical to what we do. And so there's a lot of prep that goes into this. But by using this standard extract template, we very quickly get something. Right? So now we're in the data. So the file I just showed you is now transformed into something usable. And we even take a little bit further. During that prep stage, there's things in this file that are called remark codes. And these are all the codes that tell you if I paid you, why, if I didn't pay you, why, if I only paid you a little bit, why, and trying to map those. There's another company called Washington Publishing that's responsible for kind of pushing those out to the public. And we take the Washington Publishing definitions, trying to see them real quick here, and we push those. So we combine just the code. All you're going to get in the file is the code. It's going to be 52. Well, what the heck's a 52? We then take the descriptions and push that in. So when we load all this stuff into SQL, we can very quickly understand what the reasonings are. Anybody got any questions on this? It's a very simple example of the data prep, but the power behind this, quite honestly, is the information that comes out of this is phenomenal for us and for our clients.
Is that scanned?
No. No, it's going to be a text-based that you get back. That's the only limitation right now is I can't take scanned images because I don't OCR anything. Just because that gets to be a little bit more headache than we're willing to put up with. So, all right. So from there, we then push, like I said, we push this into SQL. Once it's all loaded up, we've got a lot of the visuals. I'm going to show you a couple examples of those. Sorry, I want to start here. So the first thing, I just said we're not into big tables. I want this one ripped out. I'm still fighting some of our other guys to make sure we do that. The one for me, though, is the heat map up top. It's not sophisticated, right? We're not doing anything fancy here. But right now, I know that there 43-point-something% of this client's denials are related to coordination of benefits. And what that means is you have two insurance plans, and you came in and you told me you had United first and that your spouse has something else. I got them in backwards, right? And so I billed the other insurance company, and they're coming back and saying, I'm not the primary, I don't owe you any money. Well, I can correct those, but I have to have people do that. I have to have processes to control it. I have to have reporting to make sure it happens, and it drives a bunch of money. I don't know if we got the, right? So this one here, by that coordination of benefit issue, happened 24,000 times in this sample for $58 million, just because I made a mistake on the front end, right? So I've got to now go back and I got to make sure all those are corrected, because if I don't do it timely, the next time I'm going to get a timely denial, which means I can't bill it and I don't get the money at all. So I've got to build whole control processes around how I take in insurance information from patients, because we're not doing it very well. So this is the stuff I can very quickly go in and tell a client that from a process standpoint, we're going to go look at how you do your registrations, because you guys obviously have some sort of problem. The other one, and out of the gate, is non-covered. Well, there's a lot of non-covered services by contract, right? So, but you have to put all this stuff, all the things go on a bill anyway, and they should be put in the category of non-covered and all those things so it doesn't show up. But what we found, we had a client that actually had non-covered as one of their major denials, and we initially thought, hey, it's not a big deal, those just happen anyway. But we decided to dig into it because it was disproportionately larger than what we had seen in the market. As it turns out, they had renegotiated to have specific CPT codes that were getting kicked out, but the payer had never updated their system. So this client went at least a year not getting reimbursed for services that they were supposed to get reimbursed for because they didn't have the data to understand the payer wasn't paying them. They were just, when these came through, a lot of people have their non-covered remark codes set, they just write them off. And so it gets to be an adjustment. And these guys were just writing it off. And it was a smaller behavioral kind of organization, but I think it ended up being about $18 million. So it's not chump change. And if we didn't ever walked in, I think they'd still be doing it. And it's not anything to us. It's just the power of visual because we looked at it right away and said, well, that's big, right? I'm not a data scientist, but that's big. So what is that? And when you start drilling into it and looking at it, you can see what some of those things are. So you don't have to use overly sophisticated analytics, particularly in healthcare, to gain advantage. And this is a lot of what we do. The other thing that's important to us, and where I can make, again, this is about making rapid decisions, right? Is if you look at the pie chart, well, not all that fancy, we're looking for a percentage band in there, that little slice, we'd like to see it around 2%. And so if it's bigger than 2%, we know out of the gate we've got an opportunity. There's always opportunity, even if it's less than 2%. But, wait, that's not gonna be good. But the important thing for us to know is we know there's opportunity if it's greater than 2. If it's less than 2, we got to dig really hard for it. So that's one of the reasons we look at that. My screen refresher. So the other things we try to look at are over time. How are denials affecting? So one of the things in the industry that we know inherently because it's the business we're in is that January there's going to be a spike typically in denials. Everybody gets their new plan, and so they went from the HMO to the PPO plan, and they don't, when they go back into the hospital or the doctor's office, they don't really check. They just say, yeah, I still have Blue Cross. So there's going to be a spike there, but trying to understand time is a big deal for us because if it's constant and steady, then we know there's probably a correctable event that we need to build controls and stuff around, and we need to go dig in that one a little bit deeper. And the other thing, we try to look at these top codes. So again, you can see where we map in the descriptions. And what this is for, so you got guys like me that have been doing this for 25 years or so. I can look at these things, and I know inherently, like there's 109 is a coordination benefits. There's a bunch of them I've got memorized because they're the high volume ones. But we bring in guys like Kyle who hadn't worked in the industry, and how do we get these guys more valuable to us? It's having all this packaged right here. And so Kyle doesn't have to have 25 years to look at this and say, hey, I think the top one there is 197. All right, is that what I see? Sorry, I don't have my other glasses on. I can't hardly see my laptop. So it's about also taking the power of this, leveraging it so that our entire staff base, right, doesn't have to wait till they get 25 years of experience to be able to make some decisions and help us take action on these and get recommendations out to our clients. So it's really leveraging the content that's, say, in my head into visuals so that it's valuable to everybody. And once we start sharing this with our clients, that's when they really get the kind of, oh, wow, how'd you guys do that? Because we're not just building visuals, we're building visuals with baked in content that we know we can take action on, and therefore our clients can also. So, any questions on any of this stuff?
Who's the primary consumer of this data? Would it be your clients or would it be your internal team?
Both. All right.
And you can repeat it too, so
yeah, I'm sorry. So who's the primary consumer? Good catch. It's really both. We use it. We'll use this for our assessment period, but we also use it when we do an implementation. We're on it every day. Kyle's one of our primary developers, and he's building stuff. He was building stuff yesterday for us on a client. So yeah, we use it pretty regularly, but so do our clients. Now, because some of this, not in this one, but in our live environment, it does have PHI. So the only things right now that the firms KPMG is willing to give back to client our PDFs. And so we build a packaged, at least on my engagement, it's like a management book of the visuals that we want to distribute to them or that they want. So I think there was another. Right. So you're basically asking, are we connected to the Monarch platform or? Yeah. So we leverage Monarch to push it into SQL, and then we attach to the SQL environment. Absolutely. Yeah. There's tremendous data sets that we've got where it's all the AR analysis. The other thing too that's pretty sweet that we can do because we leverage the data watch tools. It allows us to build the story, and I don't have a visual, unfortunately, but I can take. So you've got denials here, like coordination of benefits. I said you can rework that and get it paid, and so a lot of clients say that's just a cash flow problem. I'm worried about $58 million, but I didn't lose that money. Well, what we can actually do then is we take that payment and adjustment detail that I told you about, and after the denial date, we look for a payment or an adjustment. And we find probably 3 to 4% of the time a cash denial gets written off to some type of an adjustment. And so they do lose that money or a small portion of that money. Or small, 4% of 58 million is probably worth going after. And those are the kinds of insights, because of the way we leverage DataWatch and Tableau, I can tell them things that they don't know and they'd never know. So that's how we...
If you don't mind, I'll just add to your question. Disparate data together, and you can output, in your case, you're automating and pushing it out to another database. We can write it directly as a TDE into Tableau server. You can do it on desktops. There's a lot of flexibility as to how you use that data.
Yeah, I would, for the project you're on, what would you guys say you drove in cash flow improvement? Just, because of we're leveraging a lot of the analytics. Yeah. Got to guess, 20, 30 million? Yeah. So, there was a client that was, Kyle's been working on for about a year now. And they liked what we were doing so much. They said, we want that. We're going to go buy Tableau. We're going to go buy DataWatch. And we want you guys to set it up for us. And so we've done that quite a bit as well. But, there was one where it's at least 30 million. Just because of the way we go about our analyses. It's really, really insightful and a lot of things they can't do. So again, this was more of I think I got one more here. This one, again, we're just trying to call out what's big. And we're 80-20 people, so we're going to attack that one first, unless there's other ones that are in conjunction with it. We do a little bit of forecasting. We like to, there's a couple things we like to forecast, and I don't know if this is actually that forecast, but we like to forecast cash. So we have some cash models that, if these are cleaned up, kind of what happens, right? So we can do some future projections. And then we also like to forecast net revenue if we can, and that's the bottom line number of the 30 cents out of the dollar. So we use a little, I would call it light forecasting in Tableau. But that's another thing that, quite honestly, is a little mind-blowing for our clients, that we can do forecasting, pretty rapid. So that's it. But that's a couple examples of the visuals we use. It's the way we use it. That's the way we make decisions. Again, for us, all of this is actionable. Other than that silly table we got on the front one that I want to get out of there, everything for us helps drive a decision, or at least helps drive a conversation with a client on what we think they are. And then the nice part is we fix it, and then we're measuring it every day. We're getting these data, these transactional files every day, and I can actually go show them and say, see, we told you it was worth whatever. But yeah.
This is for a health system.
Yes.
Do you drill down to the individual hospitals?
We can. So we got one in California that was multi-hospital, and we built their entire data denial analytic package. And
I don't see that as a selection, but on that one you do.
Yes. Yep. And we've got a couple. I've watched the building interactivity session. It was really pretty good. Gave me a couple ideas, but so we've got them where you can hot filter. If you just hover over them, or you can do the drop down, different stuff. But yeah, so when we load the data, every piece. That's one of the things when we're building the data prep. It may have a facility ID in it, but not the name. And so we'll go ahead and put it, hospital name 1 and hospital name 2 so that it's more human-friendly than a machine-friendly. But
The other thing from a drill down perspective, you can have complete lineage as to where that data came from. So you can go from a Tableau workbook, drill down directly to the 835 file and see exactly where on that file. So if you were pulling data from 835 or maybe a legacy report or some other source of information, you've got complete transparency as to where that came from.
So, so for me, I'm about finished. I really would love to have more of a dialogue and answer any questions. But if you see, when we talk about revenue cycle in healthcare, these are all the tasks that are administrative that have to occur to get paid, if you want to think about it that way. And for us, our little Q-tip slide here, these are all the places we want to capture operational data. And so when I said we know where we want to look, we go into a client with this framework in mind. Right? I don't drop this on them, but we're looking for how do I get the transactional data for my bad debt? I want my cash posting transactions. So we go down the line and know where our data points are, and then all we have to do is figure out how we get it from there, which makes the DataWatch tools make that very easy for us. So a couple of the key points on this that again, at least in my world, is that data visualization is really key to kind of identifying opportunities. Like I said, we can turn that over now to somebody that's really never been in there, and then they can at least see, wow, that bubble's big. Well, what does that mean? We know how to, it allows us to find things from an operations standpoint. Because we weave the data together to different disparate kind of pieces of data, I then know where there's operational breakdowns, and I know what to fix. And so I can go right into a client, and I can tell them, all right, here's the story we're seeing. This is what we want when we want you to put a control here. We want to move 3 people out of here. We want to do this and add analytics on top of it. So that's important. We use it a lot to monitor. I mentioned we do it for our engagements. So Kyle's been there for at least a year now, and we've used Tableau and DataWatch the whole time to build our monitoring of what we do and the progress we're making, and we share that with the client as well. And then for us, we can, because of the analytic capabilities of this type of a platform, we can make improvements along the whole spectrum. So it doesn't matter where the breakdown is, because now I have the ability to capture operational data and visualize it and monitor it. And I can now start controlling how that work gets done. And for us, most of the time, we're trying to take the human variability out, right? So I don't want a human to make a mistake. I want to put things in place so that process is smoother. And those where I have to have human interaction, which in healthcare is a lot, I want to make sure that they get it right the first time and be able to track that. So that's kind of what we do and how we use the tools. So I hope that was helpful for you.
That was great. I'm just going to summarize and talk a little bit about where we see data preparation evolving to.
Do you want that or not?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. And then we'll open up for Q&A. Next month, we're going to release a new version of our flagship product, Monarch. And our vision is that we've spent the last 20 years unlocking various data sources, making it easy for you to assemble that and move it into Tableau and other tools. The next major evolution is to say, okay, how do we help solve this problem, not just for analysts, but to build a platform for delivering data throughout the organization and kind of meeting the needs of a broader set of users. So it's not just about making it easy to share the data prep models, to share the source data. How do I start to deliver prepared data to greater numbers of users? We've taken an approach, and it's very similar in what you heard yesterday with Tableau's vision for delivering data and collaborating with greater numbers of users throughout the organization. We looked at how social platforms have changed and evolved to meet those expectations of users around data. And what's happening, we see in enterprises, we see people that are growing impatient. And that's the whole rise of Tableau, right? Is I don't want to wait for the IT teams to build out dashboards and reports. So you guys have been at the forefront of this. Taking data to the next level and providing a way that we can deliver this data and make it very intelligent as to how users discover the right data, the relevant data, and being smart in terms of providing cognitive capabilities to assist people to find, hey, who are the right kinds of users like me? What kinds of data are they accessing? How can I access this data? Providing sanctioned, governed data sets that people have confidence in, but still have that agility. So I encourage you to come by the Data Watch booth if you want to see what this next generation looks like. And for us, it's about, again, not just meeting the needs of analysts, which are key, but from an IT and BI team's perspective, how can we provide that governance and lineage and transparency, providing more managed self-service. And to information workers, how can I get at the information that I need more quickly in a trusted way? And how do I take this tribal knowledge that we have in our organization and start to share and collaborate better and better utilize that? So this is where we see it. So again, it's moving from self-service data preparation to a platform that does self-service data preparation but delivers the relevant information to a broader class of users. And that's really where we see this evolving to in the future. So with that, we'll take any additional questions that you might have.
Any platforms that Data Watch can't access currently?
Good question. It's easier to say which ones we do, maybe, but there are some applications like NetSuite applications, other web-based applications that we don't support today, but those are roadmap. For us, all of the web-based databases, cloud databases, NoSQL, all that stuff is available. Is there something specific that's
BigQuery, Google.
not supported today? Roadmap item. Yep. Yep.
Given Tableau's announcement yesterday of the data prep product, how
Yeah.
does that change how you guys think about it? And what do you expect to see in the data prep world?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. The last few years have been interesting with the rise of self-service data preparation. We're one of multiple vendors that have been out there evangelizing and educating the world that these tools exist and they can really help organizations. Tableau's announcement that they're entering the self-service data prep is a great thing, I think, for all of us. In that, what Tableau has done is they validated the need for a platform for self-service data preparation. It's not just a feature in a BI tool. You need to take a platform-like approach so you can do the preparation and deliver it to a variety of use cases, and not just Tableau. So we welcome Tableau into the space. Our relationship with Tableau is going to be an enduring one because we get at a variety of sources that no other vendor can get to. So we see ourselves over time as providing greater access to that data. But their vision for delivering data throughout the organization, we think, is a great one, and it's very aligned to not only to our vision but to what we're releasing next month. So I encourage you to come by and take a look at that.
What's your cost of acquisition and latency for some of these online databases, CRMs or EDMs on databases that you're acquiring?
What is the cost?
Yeah, in terms of computational power, a lot of these are real-time systems.
Yep.
So there's always a cost of being able to extract in your real time.
Yeah. So it totally depends on the data that you're bringing in. From our perspective, the way in which we process that data, it either gets processed locally. I mean, you're running Data Watch on your laptop. You can build models. You can run it all on your laptop. You're constrained by the amount of memory that you have. It's an in-memory process. Moving to a server side, you can do data of any size. And the cost will be totally dependent on the scope and size of the data that you're bringing in.
And I'll tell you, from our perspective, we use one server right now. We got one blade, and we're running Tableau, the Data Watch products on that one, and SQL. So we have some occasional performance issues, but using packaged workbooks and that sort of stuff, we get around that. But at least for the data we're processing, which is a good bit in size, not crazy, but it's pretty good. It's not.
I was going to talk more about your acquisition, because all the cloud systems typically charge by scan.
Yeah. Yep. So an example would be, yeah, no, it does. Thank you. That helps. An example would be how we connect to Salesforce, right? So there's two ways to connect to Salesforce. One, you can connect to the raw tables, which most users don't understand the underlying data below that. We also can connect to reports that you've created in Salesforce. So to have a user generate a report in that native Salesforce interface, which they know and love, and we use that as a data source. So that's a way to optimize and bring only the data that's really relevant across the network and down into DataWatch. So.
Do you have any plans for delivering the interactive part of the dashboard to external clients, or are you sticking with the
No, we do. We're trying to decide the one PHI component that we can't get rid of is because it allows us to link all the stuff. So it's basically an account number, right? And so we're trying to figure out how do I mask at a database level the account number so that then I can push it out. But that's the last. I mean, we've got some really smart people trying to figure that out. It's not me. But yeah, that's our next step is we want to be able to actually take the solution that we have kind of to the market. But right now we got to wait on that PHI component.
And data masking is a piece of functionality that's available in DataWatch. So part of what we do in the data prep, if you want to mask data, redact data, provide pseudonyms to data, so you can distribute that data out. People who are authorized can see the real value. People that don't, you can either redact it or anonymize it. So, additional questions? Well, listen, I encourage you. Oh, one more thing to say. The actual cost to do this for Tableau users, from a DataWatch perspective, it's $40 per user per month. It's an on-premise solution. It's not expensive to get started. We've got a free trial on the website. We're here to help you. There's lots of resources. We encourage you to try it for yourselves. Come talk to us in the booth if you have any questions. We'd love to hear your use cases. And I really appreciate you spending the time with us. And thank you, Michael, for a great presentation today.